Hey, good morning from the office, folks. I know you were expecting to see BKP this morning, but instead you've got first-timer RFG, all right? I'm happy to be here this morning. Brian is a little bit under the weather, so I got the 911 call yesterday and asked if Rhinestone and Burlap would do a little dog and pony in here for a couple hours. Fortunately for Burlap, Bruce Conti, he is on the road with his wife. They're taking a 6-week West Coast swing tour. So you got me, folks. Anyway, we are live from the office, North Georgia's only live online broadcast. We've got a lot going on that we're going to try to cover today. I mean, I don't even know where to start. News day yesterday. Iranian deal, Pompeo, we got Gina Haspel, we got the primaries to cover, we've got the Rose Garden yesterday with the First Lady, so we're going to talk a little bit about a major endorsement in the local gubernatorial race here in Georgia for Hunter Hill. We'll do a piece on that later,
And calling in and texting into the show is highly encouraged, and I want you to call into Good Morning from the Office. If you want to send us an email, you can email us at chief@fetchyournews.com, or you can call or text 706-889-9700. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fetch Your News, at FYNTV, and at Team FYN Sports.
Well, thank God we got Amanda at the helm, because I'm telling you, without her, I'd be in here wallowing in mediocrity, but
thank you.
What else are we going to cover today, Amanda? You got any thoughts? You got a segment for us later?
Yeah, we've got I've got a lot of thoughts. Like BKP calls it page 6 stuff at the 9:30 segment. And just wait until you tune in, and I'm gonna kind of mirror off of some Ben Shapiro stuff today.
Oh, cool. Good. You know, folks, like I said, this is my first time doing this, so I'm just going to kind of wing it and see how well it goes. But yesterday was a huge day in a lot of respects. What we saw happen yesterday was not just the U.S. pulling out of the Iranian deal and leaving the other 5 countries in the dust. What it was a systematic takeaway of the Obama legacy. This has been going on since Trump took office. And what we saw yesterday was just one in a series of campaign promises that were kept. We've got a president in the office that is bent on keeping his promise to the American people, the voters that voted for him. And I'm telling you, he's doing a great job. This ought to tell the world that he is not somebody who puts a red line in the sand and then moves the line. You know, the effort to take the Obama legacy down started literally when Trump was inaugurated. He immediately signed an executive order withdrawing the U.S. from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. The president argued that the campaign trail, that the agreement known by TPP was hurting American workers. Next day, Trump directed agencies to approve the Dakota Access and Keystone Pipeline. This was just a series of things. He ordered then his Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke, review all the national monuments designated since '96 that cover more than 100,000 acres. Remember, the White House predecessors had a massive federal land grab, and he reversed that whole thing. The Iran deal, wasn't the only multinational agreement from which Trump has withdrawn. In 2017, he announced that the U.S. would pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, to which Obama committed the U.S. via executive order. The key to this whole thing is what I just said, executive order. These are the easy things to reverse. Obama didn't get a lot of support for a lot of things he did, especially the Iran deal. The Iran deal is, if everybody recalls, was both sides were highly critical. One of the biggest opponents to the deal was Senator Schumer. Schumer was just up and down all over the place, saying that he didn't like the deal. There were a lot of Democrats that were against it, and now all of a sudden they're crying from the other side. This deal, in my humble opinion, was being orchestrated the entire time Obama was in office. And it wasn't necessarily being done by Obama. I believe that it was the puppet master, Valerie Jarrett, that orchestrated this whole thing. You know, she's Iranian born, and she wanted to be the negotiator. She literally was negotiating with Iran the entire time Obama was in office. She wanted to go down as the one who normalizes relations with Iran, if you will. And the mullahs just kept using her and Mr. Obama as their absolute tools. When the sanctions went into place in 2015, when the sanctions that were in place, that were lifted in 2015, they really had that country hamstrung. The Obama regime, if you will, by giving him $150 billion, giving him $4 billion in cash, they brought them back to the forefront where they were able to trade. The country was at the same time doing all their nuclear shenanigans behind the scenes. You know, they were trading with the Europeans, with the EU. They were selling missiles. They were doing all the nasty stuff behind everybody's back, and that's why Trump kept saying, this is not a good deal for the U.S. We've got to get out of it, and he kept his promise on that deal. So we're gonna, you know, the media is all up in arms today, saying, well, you know, they're burning flags. They're burning the American flag now on the floor in Iran of the Senate. We're going to suffer the consequences. Keep in mind, you know, we've got. Let's go back to what we talked about the other day when Bruce and I were on the show. Trump is a pragmatist. He's not a left-wing guy, a right-wing guy. He is a pragmatic guy that takes the best approach for what's best for the country. Okay? He is convinced that this art of the deal is the way to work it. What's going to happen now is we've got a 90-day cooling off period. And then we've got another cooling off period that goes 180 days. You know, everybody's up in the arms that they think the sky is falling after the first day that this was nixed. That ain't going to happen. What this is an attempt, in my opinion, to do is to bring the parties to the table. And let's fix the deal, not just nix the deal. You'll hear the left all day today saying, well, Trump takes these things off the table and he has no plan B. What's the plan? Folks, just sit back and watch the plan. He's got Germany, he's got France, he's got Great Britain, that all have a self-serving interest to keep this deal in some form or fashion alive. Why? Because they're trading with them, the Iranians. They're getting oil. They're getting natural gas. They're getting all of that stuff from the Iranians. They need that. Okay, fine. We don't have any problem with that. But at the same time, we need to get the correct sanctions in place so that the tension in the Middle East can be brought back under control. Okay? There's been more tension in the Middle East since this deal has gone into effect because Netanyahu comes out and says he's got the proof that they were cheating, and sure enough, he did have the proof. Pompeo saw it, Pompeo backed him. So again, we've got a 90-day cooling off period where these three countries, and probably Russia and China too, they were part of the deal. These 3 or 5 countries are going to put pressure on Iran to come back to the table, come back to Papa and say, okay, what can we do to make this better? You know, do you want to have full authority to come in and check to see what we're doing? Something that we didn't give you in the past? Yeah, that'd be nice. You know, we've never, the auditors, if you will, the nuclear auditors that were given the authority to come in and check centrifuges and things like that, you know, they were never allowed on any of the military bases. Where do they think these people are going to be making a bomb? But a military base, right? It's just beyond comprehension. So stand back, take a powder, if you will, let things settle down, and let the 90 days and the 180 days do their course. I think you'll find that approach is going to bring everybody back to the table and come up with a deal that people can live by. So, you know, you're going to hear, like I said, you're going to hear a lot about that today. The left is going to be whining, but just take a look at the clips from the past when this thing was put into place. You know, the haughty John Kerry goes over and he thinks he's got this great deal. He got taken to the cleaners, folks. And now he's running around before the deal behind the scenes, telling the Iranians how they can keep this deal in place. I'm telling you, you know, he ought to be brought up on charges for under the little used Logan Act, if you will. He ought to be brought up on charges just for what he did, trying to undermine this administration's effort to get this deal done right. Obama releases a 3-page memo yesterday, a 3-page memo saying how bad this deal was and how it's going to threaten the peace of the world. You know, just relax, take your time, let's see what's going to happen, and I think everything's going to be okay. What do you think, Amanda? Everything going to be okay?
I think everything's going to be just fine.
I am sitting in today for Brian. BKP is a little bit under the weather. He texted me this morning and thanked me for making an effort to come in. I hope I represent him well. We'll at least cover some ground today. You know, it's interesting. You see the dynamics in place in this big announcement yesterday. Brian has a habit of going to MSNBC at 6 o'clock in the morning to see what they're talking about. And so, okay, so I admit it, you know, I'm trying to do the right thing and give you some continuity here, folks. So I as well, 6 o'clock this morning, I'm doing show prep furiously. I go to MSNBC. What is the lead story? Come on, tell me, what do you think the lead story is? It's about Cohen taking money from a Russian oligarch. What's the second lead story? Stormy Daniels. What else?
Of course.
Of course, right? All the way down the list, I think they didn't get to the Iranian deal till about 6:25. It just absolutely boggles my mind. And of course, you know, what is her name? What is her name in the morning? On MSNBC, help me with that.
Mika?
Yeah, Mika. Mika once again. I wrote a couple of things down. Mika once again. The president has no moral compass. He's not fit to lead. He has no plan. I mean, you know, you could roll tape every day and listen to that thing, and nothing changes. So, anyway, Brian, I tried to do you right by looking at the competition, seeing what they were saying, and once again, they're 180 degrees from what the rest of the world is saying. But then when you devote 91% of your time to running down the president, that was a study that I saw. I mean, it was just amazing. 91% of the time spent by the mainstream media talking about Trump was in a negative light. I don't know. Trump has a way, though, of kind of changing the subject. I think if the reports are right, and the whisper was out there yesterday, Pompeo's on his way to do two things: set up the meeting with North Korea, go over the guidelines, and what else? Bring 3 prisoners home. There isn't anybody on the planet in the Trump administration that thinks that they should be sitting down talking about peace negotiation when we've got Americans held hostage in their prisons. So I think what you're going to find is the whole narrative is going to change. The focus is going to change. We're going to slowly shift into this 90-day cooling off period with not a lot of talk about it, because tomorrow when we see a U.S. plane with a U.S. insignia on it land and that door opens, I think you're going to maybe find 3 happy Korean Americans that will be graciously released. Now, we're hopeful, God willing, that they're in good health. One of them I know, I think 2 of them were college professors, and one of them was a spiritual guide. I can't recall exactly, but one of them was sentenced to hard labor, and it's been in that labor camp, and that's tough duty. But I think they've been transferred from prison, from the camps, into a kind of a holding hotel until all the negotiations are in place. And we are hopeful that tomorrow we're going to be seeing the cameras focus on an American aircraft landing with Secretary of State Pompeo and 3 happy Korean Americans that have been graciously released from the North Korean prison. How cool would it be if if we were able to get a deal worked out where everybody came together and drip blood over the candle and say kumbaya, and the North and the South are friends once again, and we can finally put the Korean War to bed. Remember, the Korean War never ended. It just was in a ceasefire. So this entire time, they've been walking on eggshells, if you will, over there, hoping to keep this ceasefire in place. So anyway, again, we're live from the office this morning. BKP a little bit under the weather. RFG trying to take over and continue bringing you some of the other news. There's a lot more going on, folks. We're going to talk later on in the second half hour about Gina Haspel. Gina is Trump's choice to head the CIA, and she's expected to face some serious scrutiny by the Intelligence Committee as today as her confirmation hearing gets underway. We've got some primary news to cover, some interesting results in West Virginia, Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina. You're probably going to see that a lot of these fringe candidates, as they call them, the fringe candidates that were either on the hard right or the hard left. A lot of the progressives were getting shunned by the voters out there, and I think this is going to be pretty telling for the midterm elections. I think you're gonna find that a lot of candidates that have won their primaries are going to be pragmatists, if you will, like Donald Trump. A couple of businessmen, self-funded. Where'd you hear that before? Won their primaries, and they're going to be up against some formidable challengers. But it looks like we've got a pretty good slate of candidates as we start out the primaries. I know we've got quite a few of them next week that we're going to be watching. What else is in the news? Let's see. We got Melania Trump. We'll talk a little bit later about Melania Trump and her Be Best campaign. Of course, the mainstream media wants to do nothing but detract and talk about her fashion, talk about this, talk about that. They don't give her any credit for anything that she does. Why? It's not because of her. It's because they don't like Trump. So anything that Trump does, anything that Trump touches, anybody that gets between the media and Trump, that's supporting Trump, gets run down just because of their disdain and dislike for the president. The president is still maintaining his base. He's still in a extremely good position. The mainstream media won't report the polls where it's shown that his popularity has been rising exponentially. Gallup, I think, or Reuters, I think, was the one the other day that came out and said that they've got polling numbers that show that Trump is way up, but they cannot release the data because it just can't be correct. It can't be correct because it's going up, right? So, I mean, they think that their polling numbers were hacked. Where have you heard that before? Anyway, we've got the special counsel Mueller. Mueller's kind of got a jackpot going. He's been getting rebuked by some of the judges that have been set up to hear the Manafort case. We're talking overreach. We'll talk about that a little bit later if we want to get into detail. Amanda, did you tell everybody that they're more than welcome to call in if they've got any questions, comments, and do you want to...
I did, and I will put up that information again. If you want to call in or text Good Morning from the Office, you can send us an email at chief@fetchyournews if you have breaking news or any news at all in our community or in the state. And our number to get in touch with me is 706-889-9700. And I highly encourage you guys to call in because we want to know the news.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your guidance back there.
You're welcome.
I don't know what's going around here, but it seems like everybody is feeling ill, got aches and pains. I'm feeling pretty good right now, thankfully.
Yeah, that's what usually happens when summer's coming up.
Now, you got some correlation there? You think it's just because everybody wants to be out of the office? And
maybe, I don't know. I know that, we had a lot going on, and poor BKP got really sick after he worked really hard over the weekend. So. Well,
you're right. I mean, we're in the heat of the election season right now. BKP's been running hard. I know the Apple Blossom Festival right here in Gilmer this weekend. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and I know that that he was trying to cover that, and no, he didn't get too many corn dogs or too much cotton candy. He just was feeling under the weather.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, especially with election season.
Yeah, and the pollen season is not helping either. If you've got any sinus issues, I mean, the pollen up here is brutal. But, we've enjoyed some glorious weather. We've had a little rain here and there, but for the most part up here in North Georgia, it is beauty as it goes. So anyway, we've been going on now for a little bit of time. Maybe we ought to take a break here, give our sponsors a few minutes, pay some bills here. So once again, we'll come back in a second and talk a little bit about Gina Haspel and the grilling that she's going to undergo, who's supporting her, who's not, and we'll talk a little bit about one of Trump's biggest detractors, Eric Schneiderman, whose career took a powder in about 3 hours' time, folks. So let's take a break, and we'll come back after these messages.